on a dark Thanksgiving Eve in 1971. A man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded a Boeing 727 in Portland. Minutes after takeoff, he handed a note to the flight attendant, claiming he had a bomb hidden inside his briefcase. The aircraft turned toward Seattle as passengers realized the calm man in the cabin was not who he appeared to be. He demanded $200,000 in cash and parachutes, setting off a silent crisis inside the United States airspace. Federal agents scrambled quietly while the plane circled, carrying a hijacker who remained calm, precise, and strangely polite throughout negotiations. Inside the cabin, fear spread as Cooper ordered the crew to lower altitude and slow the aircraft for parachute deployment. At 10,000 feet over the Pacific Northwest, he opened the rear stairs and prepared to vanish into darkness forever without hesitation. He stepped into the storm and disappeared into history, leaving behind money, witnesses, and unanswered questions in the night sky. Then the plane doors slammed shut, engines roared back to life, and the aircraft continued into the unknown night sky. Search teams later combed forests and rivers across Washington, but no trace of the man or his parachute was ever found. The money packets began surfacing years later, partially decomposed along the Columbia River, deepening the mystery surrounding the hijacking case. Despite one of the largest manhunts in aviation history, investigators found no confirmed identity, no leads, and no closure at all. The hijacker became known simply as D.B. Cooper, a name that transformed into one of America's greatest unsolved legends ever told. Some believe he died in the wilderness that night, while others insist he escaped with the money into another identity. Decades passed, and investigators reopened files again and again, chasing whispers, rumors, and fragments of impossible evidence across time itself. A breakthrough came when recovered. Bills matched the ransom money, but it only deepened questions about how and where he vanished. No parachute, no body, and no confirmed landing site ever emerged, leaving experts divided for more than half a century. The FBI eventually closed active investigation, but the case file remains open in the public imagination and forensic debate still today. New theories emerge every year, from betrayal on board to escape planning executed with military precision and calculated timing, allegedly. Said the truth remains locked in silence beneath cold waters, where one man's leap into darkness still defies explanation today. The aircraft landed briefly in Seattle, where cash, parachutes, and fuel were delivered under silent federal surveillance and extreme secrecy conditions. Inside the plane, Cooper remained calm, carefully inspecting every parachute as if he understood exactly what each detail meant for survival. Flight crew later recalled his voice as controlled and steady, showing no fear, even while holding the entire aircraft hostage in silence. Federal agents believed he had military or parachuting experience based on his precise demands and unusually technical understanding of aircraft procedures. As negotiations ended, the Boeing 727 took off again into the freezing night, heading toward Mexico under Cooper's final instructions. Passengers had already been released earlier, leaving only the crew and Cooper inside the aircraft during its final mysterious flight segment. Somewhere above the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper ordered the plane to reduce speed and drop altitude once again. The cockpit crew complied, unaware that history was moments away from one of the most debated disappearances ever recorded in aviation. At approximately 8 p.m., Cooper moved toward the rear exit, checking his equipment with unsettling calmness and deliberate precision. Storm winds howled outside as the rear staircase was deployed mid-flight, exposing the cabin to violent freezing air currents. Crew members later described the moment as surreal, as reality seemed to collapse into chaos and silence simultaneously inside the aircraft. Cooper adjusted his tie, stepped into the open stairwell, and disappeared into absolute darkness without hesitation or visible emotion. No screams were heard, no final words spoken, only the sound of wind swallowing a man into the night sky forever. Inside the aircraft, confusion spread as crew members rushed toward the rear, only to find empty space and roaring wind. The staircase was violently buffeted by turbulence as the plane continued forward, carrying only questions instead of answers from that moment onward. Radio transmissions confirmed nothing unusual at first, as the aircraft maintained course while Cooper's presence simply vanished from existence. Federal authorities on the ground realized they had lost visual contact, but not yet understood the scale of what had happened. Search calculations began, immediately projecting possible landing zones across rugged terrain, rivers, and mountain ranges filled with darkness and uncertainty. Despite rapid response, weather conditions made night search operations nearly impossible, forcing investigators into delayed action during critical early hours. The sky that night offered no witnesses, only storm clouds and silence, as one of history's greatest disappearances was sealed in mystery. By the next morning, the aircraft and federal agencies had entered a state of full operational emergency across multiple states and jurisdictions. Helicopters swept across dense forests and frozen mountain terrain, searching for any sign of parachute impact or human movement below. Despite massive coordination, the search yielded no footprints, no equipment, and no physical evidence confirming where Cooper had landed. Investigators began mapping wind patterns from the night of the jump, attempting to reconstruct a path through violent atmospheric conditions. Every calculation produced different outcomes, spreading landing possibilities across hundreds of square miles of unforgiving wilderness. The absence of evidence began to challenge the assumption that survival was even possible under those extreme conditions. Yet no body was ever recovered, and no confirmed crash site was identified anywhere within the predicted drop zones. Inside FBI headquarters, pressure intensified as media attention transformed the case into a national and international sensation overnight. Newspapers described the hijacker as a ghost, a man who had stepped out of an aircraft and out of reality itself. Witness testimonies were re-examined repeatedly, but every account remained consistent, describing a calm man with complete control over the situation. Forensic teams analyzed every item left behind on the aircraft, searching for fingerprints, fibers, or any trace of identity. Only partial clues were recovered, none strong enough to produce a definitive suspect or verified personal background. As weeks turned into months, investigators followed hundreds of false leads spanning multiple states and even international borders. Some suspects were dismissed quickly, while others consumed years of investigative resources without producing meaningful breakthroughs. The case slowly shifted from active pursuit to long-term cold case status, though interest never truly faded among federal agents. Cooper's name began circulating in popular culture, transforming from criminal suspect into mythological figure within modern American folklore. Documentaries, books, and theories multiplied, each attempting to solve what official records still classified as an open mystery. Yet behind every theory remained the same unanswered question that no investigation had ever resolved with certainty or proof. How could a man disappear into a storm at night and leave no trace of existence behind him at all? Even decades later, newly released FBI files revealed more confusion than clarity, reinforcing the unresolved nature of the case. The night of the jump remained the only moment in history where every system failed to explain a single human disappearance. As the years passed, technology advanced, but the Cooper case remained frozen in time, untouched by modern forensic breakthroughs or digital tracing systems. Investigators revisited old evidence using new scientific methods, hoping even the smallest fragment could finally reveal a hidden identity. A few recovered bills from the ransom money resurfaced years later, discovered along riverbanks by chance rather than systematic search efforts. These discoveries confirmed the money had entered circulation in a fragmented way, but offered no clue about Cooper's final fate. Each recovered bill deepened the mystery rather than solving it, raising new questions about how far he may have traveled after the jump. If he survived, he had successfully erased every trace of his identity, while navigating one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. If he did not, then the wilderness had concealed him so completely that even extensive searches failed to uncover any remains. Both possibilities challenged expert consensus, dividing investigators between survival theorists and those convinced of a fatal landing. Specialists in aviation safety analyzed the jump repeatedly, debating altitude, temperature, and parachute capability under storm conditions. Their conclusions conflicted, with some claiming survival was unlikely, while others insisted it remained technically possible under specific conditions. The case became a permanent fixture in FBI history, cited as one of the longest and most complex unsolved investigations ever conducted. Public fascination continued to grow, fueled by the absence of resolution and the enduring image of a man stepping into darkness mid-flight. Over time, Cooper became less of a suspect and more of a symbol representing ultimate escape from surveillance and authority. New generations discovered the case through documentaries, each adding new interpretations but no final answers to the original mystery. Occasionally, suspected individuals emerged, claiming or being accused of being Cooper, but none were ever conclusively verified. Every lead eventually collapsed under scrutiny, reinforcing the idea that the truth may have been lost on the night of the junk itself. Some investigators privately admitted the case might never be solved, no matter how many resources or years were dedicated to it. Still, official files remained open in passive status, waiting for evidence that might never arrive. The Pacific Northwest forests continued to hide their secrets, holding on to whatever truly happened beneath that storm-covered sky. And somewhere within that silence, the truth of D.B. Cooper remained suspended between legend, history, and unanswered reality. As decades turned into half a century, the case of D.B. Cooper remained untouched by time, still locked in permanent uncertainty. What began as a hijacking evolved into a cultural enigma that refused to fade from public memory or investigative records. Retired agents revisited the case in interviews, each describing it as the one mystery that never allowed closure or satisfaction. New theories continued to emerge, suggesting survival, betrayal, or even carefully planned identity erasure executed with precision timing. Yet none of these theories ever produced physical proof strong enough to end the debate once and for all. The forests where Cooper vanished were repeatedly searched, mapped, and re-examined using modern aerial scanning technology. Still, the land revealed nothing that could confirm his landing, survival, or final movements after leaving the aircraft. Over time, the case became less about solving a crime and more about understanding how disappearance itself was possible. Cooper's jump became a reference point in aviation security history, changing how future flights were monitored and protected worldwide. Yet the man behind it all remained unknown, his identity buried deeper than any evidence investigators ever uncovered. Occasionally, artifacts believed to be connected to the case surfaced, only to be dismissed after scientific verification and analysis. Each false discovery reignited public fascination, reminding the world that the mystery was still alive beneath layers of speculation. Forensic advancements in DNA and digital tracking brought new hope, but no sample ever matched any confirmed suspect profile. Even with modern surveillance systems, experts admitted that a repeat of such an escape would be nearly impossible today. And yet, the original disappearance remains unexplainable within the limits of what was recorded that night in 1971. Some believe Cooper planned every detail perfectly, anticipating every federal response long before the plane ever left the ground. Others argue that luck played a greater role, turning a desperate act into one of history's greatest unresolved escapes. But every interpretation leads back to the same moment frozen in time, a man stepping into storm darkness without a trace. The truth, if it still exists, remains somewhere beyond evidence, beyond investigation, and beyond the reach of modern understanding. D.B. Cooper did not just disappear from a plane that night. He disappeared from history itself. And even now, the sky that swallowed him refuses to give him back.